Hi all, Marina Kukla here again to talk about cognitive behavioral therapy for work success, CBTw. Today is going to be a super brief video where I'm going to review the introductory elements of CBTw. These are things we do during each session. The work check-in, the take-home review, and then agenda setting for the current session. Okay. All right. So work check-in, you can also find further information about this on page 10 of the CBTW facilitator guide and the cheat sheet PDF. But this is something that usually takes about 10 minutes, but it depends on how many people you have in your group and sort of what the depth of the check-ins that they have to offer that week. And so this is where every single person present checks in on what's going on related to them and work. It could oftentimes relates to the work goal. It could be something like had a job interview, put in a new job application, updated the resume, got a job offer, started a job, thought about a new way to approach the job or the work goal. Could also be related things like thinking about or pursuing schooling or college or further training. And it could be something else, of course, that I didn't include here as an example. The most important things are every single person checks in and says something, even if they say no update today or nothing new. Um, this is usually just something where you go around person to person. As the facilitator, we don't have many reflections here. Usually what I use is some positive reinforcement, especially when someone uh, says that they've made progress in some way, like they got a job offer or they went to a job fair, something as I know them that's progress. I'll say, congrats on that. That sounds awesome. Or that's wonderful that you've been doing that, whatever it happens to be. There's not a lot of time. And usually I'll let people kind of go into more detail when they have had a major development like a job interview or they've been offered a job. And so I might ask them for some details on that to share with the group. This is also an opportunity for other veterans to learn and benefit from seeing their fellow group members have success at work, and also those specific details like how they did the job interview, what it was like to go and talk about certain topics. I one time had a veteran in CBTW talk about what it was like to go up for, he wanted to work as a hotel manager. That was something he'd done for a long time. It was a really, really nice hotel he wanted to work at, but he had to explain why he had a felony conviction on his record. And then he told the group how he actually went about doing that in the interview, something that was successful, and he got the job. So that was a really beneficial opportunity to see how he handled a difficult situation or a situation that may be related to, of course, what we talk about in group or some of our topics like interpersonal effectiveness, challenging unhealthy thinking, or other things like this. And then for most people, though, they're just going to go around and say nothing, or I met with my voc rehab counselor, updated my resume. So it'll be just a very brief check in there. So the next introductory element is the take-home review. Of course, the take-home is the homework that was assigned at the end of the previous session. This is something that's generally brief, maybe about 5 minutes, but again, it depends how many people actually did their take-home or tried it and how many people want to share that. Usually, though, the important thing is everyone has a broad opportunity to share. We don't go around person to person, but we leave it open for people to share. Usually, in my experience, there's usually a couple people who do want to share. It just depends who's in your group and how much they do the homework and they're into it. And so usually I begin by sort of just saying, here was our homework assignment as a reminder. This is what we talked about at the end of last session, and who wants to talk about theirs or discuss or share theirs. Then I leave that open. And then, a couple of other things to sort of think about is that this is a good opportunity to use those basic cognitive behavioral reflections or even reflections of emotion if it's appropriate for the person. I also like to use a lot of positive reinforcement again for people just trying it, even if they just took a look at it or tried it once during the week. That's great. And I like to provide a lot of reinforcement for doing the homework. Usually we focus on the employment context. but sometimes occasionally people will do the homework and apply it to other areas of their life, especially if they don't have a lot going in the job in terms of the work or job search or whatever it is. For example, we've had people who use the I statements or communication skills with their landlord. And so that's totally appropriate to talk about here. Or even with a family member, a neighbor, someone they know, a friend, and they might use these skills. Or at a different time, they noticed they had really unhelpful or unhealthy thinking, not related to work, but still it was not helpful for them, and they were able to be aware and assess and answer that. So those would be other examples of when the take home related to other areas, not employment, is totally acceptable and I think makes sense. What do you do if somebody says, yes, I did it, but then that's sort of all they say and they don't provide any details? You don't have any sense of what they actually did. Is sometimes if they don't wish to share that or it's sort of not emerging, I'll rotate or pivot to process-based questions. How was it like to try it? Have you ever tried anything like this before? Was it easy or was it hard? The goal of these questions is to kind of get their narrative going and hopefully get more information and details out about that. Um, another troubleshooting, which we don't typically have, is if no one did the homework, especially if this is a pattern where you can kind of tell the folks in your group are not super pumped about the take homes. Um, Again, we would kind of go over that. Maybe we would openly discuss it. Like, I've noticed that people haven't been doing their homework, and please give this a try. It's so that you can try using these skills in your life before you need to use them in that super stressful situation. So for example, I think it's session 6, we do the breathing and the relaxation. Of course, we want to emphasize that we want to practice this stuff now so that when you need to use it in a situation, it'll work really well for you. So anyways, continuing to try to encourage and provide reinforcement and just encourage people to try it. I also say people who don't want to jot down notes in the take home section, that's completely fine. Just try it. That's what's most important, is that you're trying to use this stuff, and some things will work well for you and some things you'll find it's not for you, it just doesn't work, or you're not that into it. And you'll try a different tool in CBTW and see if that works. So as we go along, if you do the take homes, those are opportunities to try all of these different skills and tools out. All right, agenda setting is simply going through the bullet point agenda at the beginning of each session on the first page. This is also a good opportunity to link together information across the sessions and how each session builds on one another. I have an example here. Like last week, we talked about the 4As and how to assess and answer our thinking. Now we're going to focus more on strategies and tools to act to support that healthier and more helpful thinking about work. So I think we have other opportunities, not just during the agenda, but I put it here because I think it makes sense. Hopefully then once we've gone through the homework, which reviews a little bit of last week, then you go directly into the agenda, which should only take a minute or two, and then you go directly into the material for that session. All right, so this is what I have for our 3 introductory elements. Hope this was helpful. Thanks again for watching these.